You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, episode 19.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, the number one resource for growing your function musician business. If you're a solo wedding singer, part of a 12-piece luxury show band, or anything in between, and want to learn from other successful musicians, you're in the right place.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast. I am your host, Jack Twiner. If this is your first time listening, then welcome. If you're a regular listener, then welcome back. This podcast is for function musicians who are looking to grow their business, book more gigs, hear some inspiring stories, and generally just learn from others who've been doing it successfully for years. So, as usual, I have another awesome guest lined up for you today, and we're going to be talking about how you balance all the things that are important to you in your life. Now, it's going to be different for everyone, of course, but I think it's important to have a little think about what that is for you and make sure you're prioritizing the right things. I absolutely don't always manage to do that, but it's something I'm constantly working on. But before we get into that, I just wanted to quickly ask again that if you're enjoying this podcast, I would be eternally grateful if you could give it a share or a quick review wherever you listen to it, or even better, both. If you do share it on Instagram or wherever, please could you tag me, and that is at InFocus Recording Co. on Instagram. And again, I will be hugely grateful. I'm also finally taking some of my own advice from this podcast and getting on top of my social media content. So if you'd like even more tips and advice on how to grow your business, then please head over to my Instagram, where I'll be posting 2 to 3 videos a week of loads of good content. And if that's not enough of a reason for you, I do occasionally post pictures of my super cute puppy as well. But that's enough from me. Let's get into the episode. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dom Lewis. You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Dom Lewis. Originally from County Durham, Dom now lives in Essex, performing in several professional function bands, duos, and playing solo piano for weddings, functions, and corporate events. Dom has travelled the world playing piano and keyboards on cruise ships and hotels in China, Cyprus, Portugal, and the Maldives. He now juggles a full-time job for the Royal Mail, managing a semi-full-time schedule as a professional musician, and in his own eyes, the most rewarding job of all, being a dad. Dom, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hi Jack, how's it doing?
It sounds like we're going to have some really interesting stuff to talk about today. I'm very interested to hear about how you manage to juggle a full-time job as well as a busy big gig schedule and being a parent.
Yes.
But first things first, as usual, I like to start off by finding a little bit more about you, where you got started and the journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Well, I was a little bit of a late bloomer into music, to be fair. I never thought, like my mum never thought I was going to be a musician. She thought I was going to be into IT because I was very into computers when I was growing up. And I got lucky enough, I got given a PC as a young kid, and she thought I was going to go into like computer designing. Music just wasn't really. My mum listened to a lot of music when I was growing up. I remember there was a lot of Cher, not 90s music, but Queen. So I did grow up with listening to music a lot. And my sister could sing a little bit, and she actually had a keyboard in her room. And my youngest memory is when my sister actually tried to teach me a little bit of keyboard, and I learned it quite quickly, but it just never grew to anything. It wasn't actually until I started secondary school, and my best friends were in a band, and I decided I wanted to. It looked cool. I watched them on stage, and I was like, well, that's something I really wanted to do. And my best friend, he actually taught me a little bit of keyboards, because I did try in the music classes. We had an old, he was a good music teacher, but he was an old rock guitarist. So his knowledge of music, it was good, but it was very basic keyboards. And I tried to play guitar, didn't really work. Tried the drums, couldn't get that. And some reason the keyboard just came to me. I just started playing, and it just came. I was just playing, I could pick things up quite quickly. And my obviously my music teacher clicked on that and tried to try this. And for some reason, a love for playing the piano just came. I spoke to my mum at the time. She got me a few at my school, they was doing after school classes for piano lessons. So she got there, and it just gradually came from there, really. My love, and I just got a really good passion. And I joined my friend's band. I said to him, can I come and be keyboards? And we were just like a bunch of 16-year-old kids playing music, trying to write music ourselves. But yeah, so then I went on to do GCSE music. And then when I decided that was it, that's what I wanted to do. I loved music. I remember my career advisor advising not to do music at the time.
Yeah, I've heard that story a few times.
Yeah, because obviously IT was coming up at the time. It was quite a popular thing. Oh, do you ever think about going into IT? That's the future. And I was like, no, music. That's what I want to do. So then I went to college. And lucky enough, my best friends who were in the band, we all went to the same college together and formed. We carried on doing there, and we got picked up from a guy who was looking for some young musicians to form a band to do covers in social clubs, working men clubs up in the north. And then we did that, carried on, went to university, studied music there, and then kind of progressed from that, really. My path has just seemed to have fallen quite nicely on I do believe people say that you've got to be luck and you find your own luck sometimes, but it just seemed one door seems to have closed for me and then another door seems to open, and I'm sure we'll go into it in different scenarios. But yeah, I've managed to get on cruise ships and work in hotels and all of that. So yeah, that's a brief history of me. And then once the cruise ships, once I decided it was time to call it a day on the cruises, I decided to come home, and I met my other half working on cruises. We came home, decided to have a family, and that's when the whole job, starting a new job and trying to balance a musician, came into the whole scenario of buying houses and that. So, yeah. So that's the quick synopsis of it, really.
So I guess first question is then, how did you originally get into cruise ships? Was that something that you wanted to do, or did that kind of come about by accident? Or
it came across by accident, really. So when I graduated from university, before then I went and did Camp America before I went to university, just to get a bit of travelling experience, and I was the musical director at this camp in America, and that kind of really sparked the fire for wanting to travel, see the world, because there was so much. I've never really travelled there since then. I went to Spain a little bit as a holiday, but that really lighted my fire of wanting to travel. So when I graduated from uni, I did try to get on cruise ships for a while, because my background is I'm not classical. I don't really read. I can read music, but not to a great standard, because I've got dyslexia, so I find that quite hard to read music. So I do play a lot by ear and just improvisation.
Yeah.
So obviously, if I wanted to join I know you had a gentleman on one of your other podcasts who he was in the orchestra. And my skills probably wouldn't be that good to join the orchestra, so I was looking more into joining the party bands and the more musicians at the side. But it was a little bit like the egg before the chicken, really. People wouldn't hire you unless you had experience working on cruise ships. But
that catch-22.
How could you get experience? Yeah, how could you get experience working on cruise ships if if they won't give you an opportunity? So I applied for a few and didn't get accepted. And it was funny enough. I had a friend of mine in Newcastle, and I knew he was going out to China with a band, and I just rang him one day just to get information how he was getting that gig. And I rang him, and he just said, "Dom, I can't believe you just rang me. Our keyboard player's just dropped out. Do you fancy coming to China for 4 months?" So I was like, yeah, why not? Sounds good. So I was like 21 at the time, 21. Went out there, it was in a hotel in Shenzhen in China. And that just, literally, that's when it all started, really. Now I ticked the box then of what I wanted to do. And then once I got back, I could then put that obviously on my CV, which then opened the door of me applying for other jobs and people, because doing cruise ships and these kind of jobs, it's not for everybody. It's, you're away for a long time. So obviously they don't hire people who are just going to join and then a week later going, this isn't for me, sorry. But you still got a 5-month contract still. You've got to prevail. And
what happens if you break that contract? Do you...
It's not really a sign. I know we're different with the pop musicians. It's basically, it's kind of like, there's not a contract, it's just like a written thing, and it's just you're letting, because we've had it before. we've got some people on and they've been fired because of certain reasons, or something's happened. So then we've had to find someone in the last minute. So it does happen, but it's just more of a pain in the arse, really, that we have to find other people to do it. So no, that was my job. So when I got back, I applied and went down to I had to drive all the way down to London for an audition. Got there, drove all the way back to Newcastle, and then got a phone call the week saying, "Do you want to come and join the ships?" And this was just the party band on there, so we had to perform, do all the theme nights, the cabaret shows and everything.
Yeah.
And I was in that band for about 5 years, I think, doing the same ship, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was probably the best years of my life. I know the other gentleman, he was saying it's hard work, and especially for the orchestra, they did do a lot. But for us, I think we were quite lucky in a sense that we were given guests entertainment status, so we could use the facilities like get a normal guest passenger, but also have the facilities of using the crew thing. So we had best of both worlds, which was really nice. I think it's changing a little bit now since I've left. But it was a great life. And that's where I met my wife now, who she could sing as well. She was in a different department at the time, just doing like the hosting, the shows and everything. And she could sing. And when my band decided we're calling it a day, we decided that we've got to carry on. We formed a duo and went and worked for the hotels for Cyprus for a bit, and came back to cruises and went back out. And it was only that was by it, really. That's the story of how to get on cruises. But so that
sounds like a bit of a right place, right time.
Yeah,
or
it is. Yeah,
right call at the right time.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
Networking, and you can't beat that, really, can you?
No, it is. And I think, like you say, you've just got to put yourself out there a lot of the time and just go.
Yeah, and taking opportunities when they're given to you.
Definitely. Because I actually, to be fair, I wasn't even thinking about doing the cruises. I was trying to go back out to China. I absolutely loved it, because the band came to an end. So I was like, well, I'm going to form my own band and go back out to China. And I found a bunch of musicians. We were putting a promo and everything together, and it just wasn't. So at the time, just life was the same. It just wasn't right for me. It wasn't working, and it was only when about 6 months down the line, I was like, I'm skint. I've got no money. I'm trying to get gigs out there. Then I was on an agency website. It came up saying keyboard player wanted, and I was like, well, I'll apply for it. I'm not really that fussed, but I'll apply for it. And then it came up, and I was like, just like you're saying, sometimes you just got to take these opportunities when it's there, or you regret it, really.
So how long ago did you stop doing cruises?
I left cruise ships in 2018. Again, we were just really lucky, my wife and I, because when we were doing the cruise, we finished on our last one doing a world cruise, so we got to see a lot of the world together. And we just decided, we weren't getting any younger. If we want to settle down and have a family, obviously can't do it on cruise ships. Unfortunately, we'd love to. There is great facilities on there, but they would allow that. So we decided that we were going to settle down, and I came home, and then that's when the challenges really came. I've been away for so long, and I've just been a full-time musician all my life, and I had a degree in music, and so I was like, what do I do really? Do I either go into teaching, or that's really it. I'll go and study more degrees and masters or something like that. Obviously, when you've moved home, we luckily enough, my wife already had a house, so we were in quite a good. But it was only a little masonette, but we wanted a bigger house, so I had to find either get a job, really, a normal job, as the musicians call them. So I was doing a bit of teaching at the time. I was driving to Hertfordshire and back for this little company. It was just my passion for teaching is not. It wasn't there.
I think it is a passion, isn't it?
It is. I think I've got quite a lot of friends who are musicians and are teachers, and I speak to them, and they do love it, and they have good days and bad days of most teachers. But I was teaching for a while, and I just couldn't feel. I didn't feel like I was giving it my all, and I felt wrong for the students. And there was one place I was teaching. It was like a conveyor belt. It was like literally one kid would come in, I'd teach them. The next kid was teaching the same thing, and it was 6 hours solid. And I was like, I'm not enjoying this. It's not what I enjoy doing. And I think with the struggle of with my dyslexia, I can't I can read music, but not to a great enough standard. If someone was to put some music in front of me and say, play this right now, I would have to go away and have a little look at it. So obviously I'm trying to teach these kids, and I don't know if it's a bit of a imposter syndrome where I feel like I can't do it. So why am I teaching someone? I was getting a bit paranoid about it and a bit anxiety. So I kind of knocked it on. I was doing a little bit of private teaching, but again, it wasn't something I enjoyed doing. So I basically, my wife said, "What about this job for the Royal Mail?" came up, and I've been joined that, and I've been there for the last 7 years, really. And it's not the best job in the world, but it pays the bills.
Yeah,
and I get to walk around and listen to these lovely podcasts in my ears, and think about my gigs at the weekend, what's coming up. But that's the hard part, is trying to balancing that, really.
Yeah. So what are you doing at the minute on the weekends? Is that your duo that you mentioned, or you're in another band, or
basically I do something different nearly every week.
Yeah.
And I think I'd love to do this as full time as a musician.
Is that the plan at all?
Sometimes it is, and it isn't. I think the dream is yes. If it was gigs like I just done at the last weekend, which I'll go into, yes. But then there's some weekends where I'm not making that much money, and I've got a little boy now.
Yeah.
I've got a mortgage to pay. And the problem is, because doing a normal job, it's that safety net of, especially when COVID hit a couple of years ago now. I was quite fortunate. Obviously, I was working, so I was all right. But I had a lot of friends who were really struggling through that time, which then opened my eyes of, is this possibly to do? And so I am trying to get that balance of doing both of them, but it is hard. It is hard, and obviously if you go on holiday, I get holiday money from my job. If I'm sick, I get sick pay.
Yeah.
So there's the pros and cons. It is hard to get that balance. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are full-time musicians and make it work, and good for them. And maybe that is something I could possibly look into, but for me, it's what suits the right person, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is stressful being self-employed. Like I think everyone knows that. But do you think? Did you basically have to start again when you came off the cruises, because all your network was in that and not in like gigging?
Well, it was that. Yeah, it was that, and I moved. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm originally from the northeast. Yeah, and my wife's from Essex. So, right. And obviously she had a house.
Completely new area as well.
Exactly. So it made more sense for me. All I had was a keyboard in my hand. So I moved down here, and so it was literally starting from scratch. And it was just network. I was going to open mic nights. I was joining Facebook groups. And the good thing about being a piano player and keyboard player is there's not many of us around, which I find.
Yeah.
We're a lot of people. We're a bit rare breeds in some circles.
Do you sing as well?
I do a bit of backing vocals.
Right.
I am trying to sing. If I could sing, that would be. I think I could probably pack this in and be a full-time musician. But unfortunately, not. My wife's the singer, and I do the odd harmonies and backing vocals. And I think that's, again, for me, I did used to try and sing as a younger, and I had quite a lot of people tell me I couldn't sing, and I think that's really got in my head. Maybe because I was out of tune when I was younger, so when I was trying to become a musician, so I have a lot of self-doubt in that. And it's only lately where a few of the bands I'm playing have encouraged me to sing and do harmonies is then brought out a lot more confidence. But if you sing, a lot of singers will tell you singing is confidence, and you've just got to just do it.
Yeah, commit to it.
But it's not my instrument. Piano's I could sit there and play a piano and sing all night. Where singing is it's another instrument, so it's a different kettle of fish. But I'm getting there. But yeah, so go back. I managed to jump in a few bands. Again, or Depp, a lot of it was on Facebook. I just kind of got myself a few videos from the ship still, so I had a website and everything, and I was getting snatched up quite a lot on other things. Because again, there's not, especially I find in Essex. I'm in an Essex piano group, keyboard group, and there's not many of us in there. And so luckily, I was getting snapped up, and I would do a few gigs for people, and then it's getting your name. You do a dep for somebody, so that's great. I'll keep all your name, and so I'll get phone calls here to do deps. I've started forming my own bands, jumping in bands, and it's just getting loads of people. So at this current state, I'm in 2 function bands. I do my duo stuff, I do solo stuff, and I also play the guitar, which is a little niche which I've started doing. That's what I was just doing at the weekend was a guitar, saxophone, violin, and DJ a beefing set.
Nice
for this client, and that was just unreal. And it's I'm in an 80s tribute band with the guitar. I do stuff with the Bon Jovi tribute band. So it's just keeping myself really busy. Yeah, that sounds like there's loads of work for you. Yes, there is. So it is coming in, but it depends on what. It's just what I find is keeping it all contained, really, because obviously there's only one of me, and if there's if a gig comes in and someone else asks me to do a gig at the same time, is trying to find that. You're trying to keep everybody happy, because obviously if I've committed to one project, then I don't want to say, I'm going to do something else. So I was trying to keep that balance, because I'll use Google Calendar, and that's just literally jam-packed with all different things. I've got, like, literally this week I'm doing a promo for a band on Thursday, and then I'm out gigging on Saturday, and I've got rehearsals with another band. Trying to balance it. It is hard. How do you manage that with a full-time job and a child as well? I'm still trying to work that out. I'm lucky enough, I've got a very loving wife who understands that my music is my passion. That's... and it's just trying to find time for everything. And sometimes you've got to sacrifice things like, a little bit of personal life. Because a lot of people, when they look at gigs and musicians, they think it's not a job. It's, that's your social life, really. But it's not. It's when I'm driving home at 2:00 in the morning, I'd rather be at home. So it's not. It is a job, but it's just lucky enough for the job which I do. I am finished early enough. I'm normally finished about 3 o'clock, so I do have time to come home. It's early starts though, right? You must be knackered. It is. It is changing a lot at the Royal Mail. It used to be a job where you'd start at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but the earliest I start is 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and which is not too bad. And they've been really good at the Royal Mail. I've managed to compress some of my hours, so I only work 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to work a Saturday, which can be a bit hard.
After a Friday night gig, yeah.
Friday, like basically, this weekend, I was out Friday playing with a jazz trio, and then got in at 1 o'clock at work, 7 o'clock Saturday morning, finished there, literally, then all my stuff was still in the car, had to drive straight to the next venue and play all day, and then got home at 2 o'clock that night. So, and then my little boys wake me up Sunday morning wanting to play with me. So it's a lot. It is hard, and it is hard on your body. But that's my choice. That's what I decided to do to make my life work. It's not for everybody, but I just try to just take every day as it comes, really, and try and keep it balanced and. I want to make sure I spend enough time with my little boy, my family. So I was lucky enough, I've got 2 days where it's just me and him on a Monday and Tuesday. And I try to worship all that time for him, because it's family is the main thing, you know.
Yeah.
If unfortunately, I grew up with I didn't have a father around, so I want to make sure I'm doing this best I can for my little boy. Yeah. Really.
So is it just about being super organized and scheduling and making sure? So you said Mondays, Tuesdays. They don't get taken by anything else. And
that's basically I try to keep that in my book. That's mine and that's family day with my little boy. And it's just, it's his organisation. That's what I would really recommend to anybody who has a busy schedule, is just try and keep on top of everything. I've got a shared diary with my wife. I put in everything, what's going on. I've even got diaries with the 2 bands I'm in with as well. Open calendar and say, right, can make sure everyone because I run one of the bands, and I say to everybody, can you just put in dates, things for that? Just when you're trying to organise rehearsals and things, there's nothing worse when you've got a group chat and it's like, can people do this day? Yes. No, I can't do that day.
Yeah.
Oh, can people do this? So basically I have to keep, which everyone doesn't keep on top of course, because everyone's got lives. So as long as I can, especially when gigs come in, they're the worst. I'm with a few agencies as well, and I'll get a message from an agency saying, can you do this date? And I'll look at the calendar and I'm like, oh, we're free. And normally I just say yes. But I'll randomly, I'll say it. Because I used to do, is everyone free? And obviously I've got a lot of friends who are teachers, so they can't reply straight away. And then, but obviously you find out with these gigs, you've just got to be on it straight away. Because if you don't, you've got 20 other people who've already replied straight to those gigs. So sometimes you just have to say yes. And then if someone can't do it, then have to either get a dep and worry about it afterwards. But that's late. That's a couple of hours problem later on. As long as you can get the gig. But I find that's for me. It's just being open and doing lots of stuff, because you could just concentrate on doing one thing, but then that's what I was finding is my calendar was empty because I was just in one band. Mm-hmm. Doing some of the pubs or some weddings here and there. But then it's like one of the bands I was in last year, the other year, we were so busy in weddings after COVID, because it was just that season. Everyone just wanted to get married straight after COVID. So literally we were inundated with so many weddings. Then the year after, I had 2 gigs with them. It just dropped off. I was just like, well, I can't. I said to the guys, I was like, I need this other job to help my family, so I'm going to have to, I've got to take other projects on board, which everyone's fine with. We were looking if we all do other stuff as well. We're all professional musicians, and so that's when I could do solo piano for weddings. I was doing dual stuff with my wife. I've got a jazz trio which I do for restaurants and any of private events where we were just playing for an RAF base just on Friday. There's a few different function bands I play, and then again just depping. I've managed to jump in a few different bands in the Essex and London area, and hopefully now I've got my name as a good dep musician. I do get phone calls every so often and say, how can you do this? And it's just networking, really. Yeah.
So that's a good segue into, do you have any tips for what makes a good dep musician?
again, organisation. I think you just make sure you learn the material, because there's nothing worse than turning up to a gig and obviously if you've listened to the thing the night before. It depends on the musician. Some people just wing it, but for me, I find a lot of the time as well that people obviously they just send you the CD or like the set list. Because when I ask for, if a deaf musician, I ask them if they can send me any live audio stuff, because you find that they have different endings. Sometimes they link songs together. So the more information I can get, the less surprises I'll have on the night.
Yeah.
When they've started going into something, oh yeah, we do a double time section here, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. The little heads up would have been all right. So yeah, basically, I ask the band or anybody to send me as much information as possible. But half the time, I just normally used to get a set list with the keys on, no music. Obviously, they do try to expect you to know everything yourself. So then I did a gig the other week for this band, and I looked at the set and I was like, I think I only knew 5 of the songs, which was very weird for me because I find jumping in a lot of bands, everyone plays the similar songs.
Yeah.
The classic songs that function bands. But there was this. They were like a ska band, which was very interesting because they normally have a saxophone player who plays keys, and obviously I said I don't play sax. They were like, that's fine, you just have to do it all on keyboards. So I had to learn all the brass parts and try and do all the sax sounds on my keyboard, which was very interesting, like doing madness stuff. So yeah, that took me a good couple of, obviously I got it in about 3 weeks, and I literally straight away started learning the stuff. Because I can't read music properly, I write out my own charts myself, and I create special ways for me to pick my chords. If there's any little notations I write about, I have to highlight them in a specific colour because it helps me read them a little better. So it's basically I have to write that. So if you could ask anybody, especially if I'm deaf before keys player, I'll do again if I say send me any charts you've got, which is helpful. Again, not all the time, but yeah, it's just basically make sure you learn the stuff and turn up and be as professional as possible. I think you want to have a good name for yourself, and you don't want to turn up and have a bad attitude, because that soon will go around, and your name becomes mud again. So you don't want you just want to be as basically professional as you can. Be nice, be nice. I did a gig that gig on Saturday. I've worked with him, the DJ, a few times, and I literally turned up. He was stressing out because there was a lot going on. There was a mariachi band clone. He had a violin playing upstairs. There's fireworks. So obviously he was organising everything. And he just said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." I literally turned up, put my keyboard up, went and plugged everything in. I did sound check myself, and he came back down. He said, "Oh, let's sound check." I said, "It's all right, it's all done. Everything." So trying to be as helpful as possible, really. And just be a nice person. I think that is the main key. You don't be a diva.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, man. So you've touched on the dyslexia a little bit. So let's dive into that a little bit more. And I don't know much about dyslexia, to be honest. But how does that affect you with music? I know it from like obviously reading text and stuff, but I guess it work in a similar way. Yeah.
So there's all different types of dyslexias, like obviously numeracy dyslexia and reading dyslexia and everything. Mine's more a little bit with numbers, but it's more with writing sometimes, and it's information going into the brain. And I always find that when reading, because stupidly I chose to pick one of the worst ones as a piano, sheet music. You've got so many notes to read at the same time, with 2 different staves to read. So I didn't give myself any chance there. And I was finding sometimes I was looking at the music and what a note which would be on the second stave I would think would be on the third one. But then I'd look again, and it feels like it would just move.
Yeah.
And I'd find if I was to look down at my hands for a second, then back up, I'd just be lost. I couldn't find where I was, and I found that really struggling. But what frustrates me more is I can read music. I did a degree in music. I've got my grade 8 theory because I actually love understanding how music works, and I used to love theory So it's like for my wedding, I wrote out a one of my favourite songs from my wife and I is Fearfully by Journey. So I wrote it out for the string quartet to play at my wedding. So I can sit down and compose music. And I think now with Sibelius and other softwares, that is a bit easier. It's not just sitting there writing, they'll tell you what the notes and stuff are. So I find that very frustrating, is that I can actually read and understand how music works. I just haven't got the standard to play it quick enough. Yeah. Maybe that is something, if I did it more often, and try, because I did find that when I was at my reading was better. Keep doing it, because I find that with dyslexia, well, it's not just dyslexia. My standard is my ability is I have to just keep going over stuff. That's how I learn, especially when I'm learning new songs. I have to play them over. Repetitive learning. That's how I learn. I just have to keep going over it. It's like muscle memory. So that was my struggle, and especially when it comes to it was music. That was reading was the hardness. So then that's when I decided, well, I've got a good ear for music, so I'm going to have to just play it by ear. And to be fair, a lot of the stuff in bands, you don't need to be able to read music as long as you can learn the songs. Yeah. And I write out my charts my way. It's very similar to like guitar charts. To be fair, you've got the chords. And that's how I got taught, actually. My music teacher, when I was younger, that's how he taught me how to read music, was because he was a guitarist. He would just write the chords out and teach me how to play chords and then improvise around the chords, really. Yeah. It was only when I obviously got into college and stuff that when they teach me more about how to read music better. But it was more like when it comes to the dissertations and stuff, that's when it was hard. But lucky enough, obviously, with education now, they do help a lot more. I know back then it was quite new in dyslexia. It was becoming, not a lot of people understood what it was, and it's getting a lot better now. I've got a lot of teachers, friends who are teachers, and I've spoke to them about how they approach kids with dyslexia now. Yeah, and it's completely different to how it was when I was a child, because it was really hard. Because we got separated in the classroom. I remember when I was really young, I got put on a different class with 4 other kids, and we were the special kid.
Yeah, that's really isolating, isn't it? Like, it's not helpful at all.
And the teacher, especially, would just be doing spellings in the classroom. This teacher would give a word, and I'd just say it was because, and then everyone, not you guys, right now, you guys, can you spell the. So we straight away, I'm now separated from the class from being the stupid one to the regular kids, which was quite hard. And we started, but obviously they didn't know what to do at the time. They probably didn't have the teaching to do that. And so I've always felt separated, especially when I went to comprehensive school, secondary school. When I was doing my exams, I was given extra time to do exams, which was lovely because obviously it used to take me a bit of time. But what I'd have to do was, once the exam finished, was put my pen down, sit there. Everyone would stand up, walk past me, looking at me, saying, "Why is he still sat there?" And asking me questions like, "Why are you still there?" Then I had to wait, and then once everyone left the room, then carry on doing it. So again, it was that anxiety of everyone's wondering, why is he getting special treatments? So that was quite hard, but it was something you just had to get on with. Basically, if I want to proceed and be a better person, I just have to overcome these. Especially as well as kids who have special needs, you tend to find sometimes were bad behaviour kids because they were frustrated because they couldn't learn, so they would take other ways out by being disruptive. Unfortunately, I was put into these classes because at the time my grades wasn't that great, so I was put in a class with kids who, throwing chairs at teachers and stuff. It wasn't great, and so that made me want to be a better person, and it made me study harder to get out of that class, which I did. I managed to get my grades higher. My mum was great. She did get me private lessons as well in maths and English to help me get onto that. So that moved me forward, which then I think you just either, if you've got dyslexia, you either become one person, it makes you push harder to be a better person, or you just accept it and just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's not maybe for everybody. I'm just speaking for myself. I know there's a lot of people out there who might find it different, and there's other circumstances, but that made me want to be a better person. But with music, it was just a passion. There was something that really triggered me with music. I just remember playing the piano for the first time when I was little, and there was this something in my soul that just lit up when I first started playing, and I just knew this was what it was. And I've done a few studies in dyslexia music, and there's a different part of the brain that helps trigger, and music is one of them. If you do, I know a lot of people do music, psychology and everything, therapy, and this obviously with dyslexia people, you find they tend to be a lot more creative.
Yeah.
Because obviously they compensate on obviously with the intellectual side or the reading side, so it's not as great. So the creative side of the brain becomes more active, and I found that as I enjoyed performing. That's one thing. Especially if you've seen me perform, I'm a big performer. And I like to do that, especially a lot of the party bands where, with the guitar, I'm running around in the audience. I just like to engage, and that I find myself no better place to be than on stage. And I think that's why I didn't really enjoy the teaching. I just enjoyed being on stage and performing. That's what I enjoyed doing. So yeah, I think that's going back around really.
That's really inspiring, man. Like a lot of people would have given up when it got tough with stuff like that. So it's really inspiring, man.
Yeah, trust me, there has been points where I've wanted to, I find it really frustrating. I'm like, why is this? Why don't I understand why this is working? And I got given, there's colour paper as well. Whereas with dyslexia, there's colours you have, and again, I got given the trial. I had to drive all the way to Oxford, and I got these green glasses because green was my colour. And I can't really go into the science of it, but basically there's a colour you have which helps, because apparently when the guy was telling me it's all this information is going from your brain, and it's all weird. It's like spaghetti really, and it's all clashing together with dyslexic people, so all the information just gets blocked and can't get there straight away. Whereas for some reason, if you have a colour, everyone's got a different colour, and if you put this colour on top of the writing or of wearing them, it helps channel all that information easier. Again, science, I don't understand how that works, but it just does. But then walking around in school wearing green glasses isn't the best. Again, bullying and all that kind of malarkey. So it was really hard. It was really hard. But again, it has changed a lot more. Speaking to my friends, it is a lot of places now, because you get laptops, so you don't have to write. A lot of places, a lot of you can sit there and compose stuff on your laptops. Or when I was chatting to my music friend, she said that you can just record yourself. If there was an essay trying to explain, instead of writing down, you can just record what I'm doing now. Just record yourself doing it, and that the music board will accept that now as a thing. So it has changed a lot, which I'm thankful for. Because obviously I've got a little boy now, because dyslexia is, it can pass on. Yeah. So I'm keeping an eye on if he does become dyslexic, then we'll just have to take that one step at a time, really. Yeah. And hopefully with everything now, it won't be as bad as it was when I was his age.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you'd have a good teacher to help him as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just, it's really selfish, because I really hope he doesn't. Yeah. That sounds really awful of me, but I just know how hard it has been. And obviously as a father, I just want the best, easiest life for him. But if he does, then we'll challenge that. We'll take it one step at a time.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let's move on a little bit from that now, and go back into your gigging life, and some of your best gigs, your worst gigs, any cool stories that you've got to share, or bad experiences, or just some time to brag a little bit about something that you've done. Yeah. What have you got for us, man?
Well, one of the best gigs, it's really hard because I've done some amazing. Again, it's probably some of the places I've been to. I've Christmas just gone. I was in the Maldives, playing on an island out there with a band, and I was literally on a beach on this big stage, in the sunset, playing. Some very rich people, while they enjoy their meal. But I was just looking over, got the Maldives huts in the beach. And it was just sometimes you had to pinch yourself.
That sounds wild. Unbelievable. Getting paid to be there as well.
Exactly, it was a paid holiday. I had 2 gigs out there and 10 days just sitting around enjoying myself, and I got paid to do it.
Yeah, that's wild.
You can't. And then like on the cruise ships, I've worked with some fantastic people. The singer from the Foundation, Clem Curtis, he came up and just jumped up on stage with us, started singing with us. I've did some fight with in Madeira in New Year's Eve. They had a big firework display. It literally goes all the way. It's like second to Sydney. Sat there playing and just watching these millions of firework. So it's hard to pick one. You
don't have to pick one. You can pick a few.
No. And I just say that's what I say to people: just go out there and just do it, because get paid to go and do it. It's just great. And worst gigs. Again, I've had probably like the odd one where I've depped and people have thrown in a few unexpected. They've told me the wrong key of the song, and I'm playing the songs, and they're looking at me, and I'm playing, and then they're like, "That's the wrong key." I'm like, "Oh," but I looked at my sheet, and I'm like, "Well, and they've just sent me by accident or something, or they've decided to change it on the night." So then you've muddled way through there. I've fallen off a stage before, which was quite. I was doing a gig in a marquee at a wedding, and it was on this little stage, and I was right at the back, and there was a little tent at the V. And obviously, I stand up and play, and I'm dancing around. I just took a step back, and next thing, everyone turned around, and I've disappeared. Lucky enough, it wasn't a big. It was just a little step, but I've fallen off the stage. That's probably one of the worst ones. Okay, with the thing, but no, not. I haven't had any weird desire. Probably one of the not worst, but I was working on one of the cruise lines, and I had to do the late shift, and there was just one person sat in the bar, and I'm playing. And I said it was when I was with the duo, my wife, and I said, "You go off. I'll just do some solo piano. There's no point, singing as well." So I'm just playing to me and this one guy sat at the bar. He was having a good time, so I can't really say it was the worst gig. But when I'm playing to that one guy, and then I've done gigs where I'm playing to like thousands of people. It's you get your fair shares of. But I think that makes you a better person as a musician. You've got to do some of these gigs
humbling
to make you. Yeah, exactly. Realize what you've got. You can't. Every gig's not going to be a big stadium arena gig. You've got to do these little gigs just to make you a better person personally.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted me to ask you, or anything that you wanted to discuss that we haven't discussed already?
No, I think that's about it, really. I think I've waffled on quite a lot.
No, there's some real good stuff in there, man. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So if people wanted to find out a little bit more about you, or connect with you, or find you on any social media, where would you send them?
Just basically, probably best to find me on my website. Is Dom Lewis Keys. .co.uk. All my information's there with my bands are playing, all my solo stuff. You can find me on Instagram at Dom _the_piano_man. should probably make that probably a bit easier to find.
I found that with my email just for this podcast.
Yeah,
no one seems to can get it right.
Yeah, well, it was Dom Lewis Keys, but then people say it sounds like Dom Lewis Key. So I was well, I'll try and put something out a little bit easier. So, but yeah, that's one thing I'm finding is trying to get the whole social media. But after listening to a few of these podcasts, I am trying my better to do the old social media.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
It is.
I'm trying my best, and it's hard.
I'm all right on Facebook. Facebook's thing. Instagram's where the new thing I'm trying to get out. I haven't even touched TikTok. That is,
no, me neither.
That is something, a different ball game, and I feel I might be a bit old for that one. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's getting there. But yeah, find
Leave
me
that for the kids.
Yeah. I was hoping my little boy's a bit older. He might be able to show me a few things. But yeah, Dom Lewis Keys. .co.uk, that's more the best one.
I will stick all of them in the show description.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, thanks, Jack. Thanks very much.
It's been great, man. Yeah, catch up soon. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I just want to say thanks to Dom again for coming on. I've really enjoyed talking to him, and as I'm sure you can tell from the episode, he's just a real nice, genuine, humble guy. And yeah, I think there were loads of good takeaways from that. But yeah, that's it for this one. Take it easy. I'll catch you next week for episode 20.